Oh, my video started again. Sorry. Okay, I forgot one thing earlier, um, and it would have gone with, let's see, I guess being prompt, and that is, I would prefer you not give at the deli. I was going to say deli and bakery. Bakery, you got timers going, so you have a bit of an idea how long it's going to take for things. At the deli, I would prefer you not give a time frame. Don't say 15 or 20 minutes, because that gives you, I feel like it gives you a bit of a time frame to say, oh, I told her it was going to be a long time. The truth is, if you have a line, we want everybody working as quickly as they can. It's fine to tell them. Matter of fact, I think you should tell them if you have a few people, a few orders ahead of theirs. Um, just say, I'm going to get to it as quickly as I can. It'll be a few minutes. You're welcome to look around the store. But if I were in there and I heard it's going to be 15 minutes, I would be like, never mind. Um, and most of the time, the truth is it's not 15 minutes. Um, it feels like a lot when you have a lot of stuff lined up, but the truth is each person's order only takes some of them just take 30 seconds. They're quick. Most of you are pretty quick. So even if it does take 15 minutes, don't tell them that ahead of time. Just tell them you have some ahead of you. So that was one I forgot to mention. All right, so on the thing about being visible, and like I said, this is where I do expect a little bit of pushback, and I do realize that you guys are going to have to, some of you, actually pretty much everybody's going to have to do some shifting of their routine. There's nothing inherently wrong with a routine except that the routine is leaving the store. There's a couple things wrong with it, but one of them is that it's leaving the store unmanned. Um, this is not, this is due to my observation. This is due to my personal experience. It's not, I haven't really had any complaints, but there have been plenty of times that I've been walking around late in the evening and thought, if I wasn't here, who would have checked this person out? We're going to try to make sure that that is not happening. So I have a closing timeline here, that you have, if you'll get that sheet and you'll follow along. There is a timeline. I really don't want closing to begin before 5 o'clock. So at some point, I kind of overheard some people talking and saying we start closing at 4. We don't start closing at 4. The business doesn't close till 6. There are a lot of things that can't be done till we're actually closed, and 4 is just too early. There's packing that can be done almost all the time, and so 4 is simply just too early to start with that. So I have this thing. Any of these items can be done at any time after the time that I have listed, but not before. So beginning at 5 p.m. is when you can start on your closing routine. Now, before that, I'll give you this caveat. Slicers, you should always be keeping your slicer wiped. I mean, anytime that you get a spare moment, you should be clean. It should be wiped down. I mean, don't walk away and leave it all, chunky and gross. And by the way, if you don't clean the cheese buildup off the knife, you're going to have it's not even going to be slicing good. So you should be routinely cleaning that slicer. So the area is not going to be filthy. It shouldn't be. And if it's filthy at 4:30, it's because you're slicing a lot for a customer. So obviously you're going to clean that up, but you would clean that up no matter what time of day it was. So that's not part of your closing routine, if that makes sense. So starting at 5, I would like, and this is one I say is going to be a big change, and that is the cashier. You're on the left-hand column. You have to stay in the store from 5 to 6. That means no restocking from 5 to 6. So I am trying to rewrite the schedules and to remember to write the schedules so that there's an extra half an hour built in after lunch, for the things that were bought on lunch to be restocked. You may have some time, depending on how busy the slicer is, you may have some time to do some restocking, 3, 4. But the slicer is going to need to be aware that you're doing that because they're going to have to be ready. Matter of fact, they might even need to come on out from behind the slicer. They're going to have to be prepared to immediately go to the register. They're going to be prepared to be saying hello because you're gone. You're not up there to do that job if you're restocking. You can do it, but you cannot do it after 5, and I'm going to tell you why. So from 5 to 6, the cashier, you're going to need to stay in the store. I know it feels boring. I'm going to give you some things you can do, but I'm going to show you, if you look at the slicers list, you're going to see why and what you're freeing them up to do. All right, so starting at 5 and anytime after, you can change out the trash on the porch. But there again, the slicer needs to know. Like, don't go trying to do that if the slicer's slicing for people and you know they're going to check out soon. That can change. You can think you have no one going to check out, and it can change in just minutes, seconds, really. You can check the restrooms for cleanliness and garbage. If you need to clean, obviously don't clean then. You got to wait till the store is closed or wait till the slicer can watch the whole store. There again, it's okay if you walk away, but we can't be walking away without someone actively watching that spot. And by actively, I mean like maybe they come out and they're fronting the candy shelf. They're walking around, they're straightening things up. They're wiping over by the ice cream, but they're actively in the store because they're responsible for watching everything while you're doing that, whatever else it was you were doing. Make sure nothing that was packed make sure nothing's left on the cart. So when it says anything packed is put out on the shelf, that is kind of a pet peeve of mine. If it's empty on the shelf and in the cart in the back is just piled full of things, those things can't sell. And so a customer comes and it looks like we don't have things, but they're out there. So those should be done during the day. For sure, by the end of the day, those things should be put out so we can start the next day with them out there. So those are a few things. Now, obviously, there may be more. You can wipe off tables. You can wipe off around the register. You can clean things up there. You can look at the suspended sales. And honestly, if there's too many up there, then go do what I did the other day or had Ava do and hang them on the lockers so that they get paid. There's lots of things you can do, but you need to stay in the store. The reason you're going to stay in the store is because the slicer at 5 o'clock can start hammering down on cleaning up. Now, she can't clean up the slicer at that point yet. You can begin to write all the cinnamon roll descriptions on the boxes, box the remaining individuals. You can wipe that down. Obviously, I already mentioned the slicer should be done. You can start to do the dishes, but you cannot do the dishes if the cashier is not in the store. This is one of the main reasons the cashier has to stay in the store, because the slicer is going to want to start doing dishes. The reason that she can do the dishes is because she can trust that the cashier will go and take a deli order if necessary, and then come and say, hey, I have some slicing. Or go up there and say, can I get you a wrap? But when we have everybody doing their own thing, we have customers standing there, and that is what has to stop. You can, as a slicer at 5 o'clock, you can clean up the packing room, and you can turn off the scale and you can turn off the lights. That can be done after 5 o'clock. So because before 5 o'clock, remember, if you had nothing to do, you should be packing. If everybody packs 1 or 2 things a day, I had a page 8 to do it this week, and I had to do a lot of it myself to try to catch us up. So as there's certain times when there's not, but a lot of times there is something to do. And honestly, if the slicer packs 2 things in the afternoon, that's 10 things. That's 10 things a week right there, and that's a table full. So just keep that in mind. You can restock the deli case. There again, because the cashier has not left the store, the slicer can be doing all those things confident that if a customer comes to her area that they're going to get helped, because this cashier is going to be ready to do it. You can get your cleaning water and all that fresh stuff to prep for closing. Make sure that you're checking the sanitizer. That's one thing we're not doing enough. We do have those little test strips so that this isn't off. But at the beginning of the day, we can test that stuff, but we need to make sure that the sanitizer water is strong enough. So especially toward the end of the day, when you're trying to wipe it down and say it's clean, you might want to get fresh of everything. If you notice, then I have one that in the green, the cleaning the glass, the windows, etc. Either of you could do that. So that's one thing that the cashier could do. The cashier could write the description on the cinnamon roll boxes and do that, but you just have to. The cashier has to stay in the store, because from 5 to 6, the slicer is going to be aggressively cleaning up. Okay, aggressively cleaning up. That includes the dishes, the restocking. She's going to start. That does not include garbage. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Okay, so 5:30. It's 5:30. Cashier still stays in the store. Cashier, that is 5:30 is when you can bag the remaining pretzels. Now, you can maybe fudge it by 5 minutes so that the slicer can get that thing that pan washed. I just heard it today when somebody wanted one pretzel and they were all bagged in twos. It's not necessary. It does not save you any measurable time to bag those early. So at 5:30 you can bag those. You can change the garbage bags in the store at 5:30, but please don't put them where customers can see them. So as the cashier, so you got the garbage bag over by the ice cream. You got the garbage bag in the front. You got the garbage bag at the cashier, or the one at the booths. You might have the garbage bag by the coffee. All of those things you can start to do, but I want you to at least throw them around the corner. You don't even have to go all the way to the door with them, but they can't sit in the main hall. We don't want customers to see them. I detest going into a business and feel like I'm walking in during their cleanup time, and so that's what we don't want them to feel that way too. You can do a final fronting of the shelf, cashiers, and then when you do that, you can take around your little paper and you can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make my paper so that the minute these doors lock, I can go back there and get my final restocking. Because remember, you're going to know, you don't need to do it from 5 to 6 because you're going to have known already that you couldn't, that it had to be done before or after. Now, slicer at 5:30, obviously, you know that you can clean the slicer and the tables. You can wash all the slicer dishes, spray down the deli area, replace the items that you washed, wipe out the hand sink. After the table and slicer is cleaned, that's when you change out the deli garbage, and that's when you sweep the floor. If you think about how it would be if you saw people sweeping the floor in the bakery before they were finished cleaning it up, it would just seem kind of silly. So the garbage and the floor are the last two things to be done in the bakery, in the deli. I can almost guarantee you that we would be losing points if the health department saw us emptying garbage bags while that area, it's dirty. You're touching it. We're gonna, if the deli's still open, there's still a chance you're gonna create garbage. So it does not save you any time in the long run. I can just about guarantee you that it does not make any difference whether you do your trash and your garbage and your sweeping at the very last when you're done, or whether you do it before. Also, be very, very careful about the floor mats being thrown out into the hallway if the store is still open. There have been times that they were borderline out where customers could trip on them, and I really would love to not have a lawsuit. So, so that is so far not too much difference. The only thing that's different basically is holding off on doing some of these things. Now, the reason I don't think it's going to make much difference in how long it takes you to get out of there is because, remember, the cashier's staying in the store. So the slicer, you can do these things without having to basically constantly look over your shoulder. At 5:30, you know that you're done anyway, but you don't have to worry about customers. You should not have to worry about them from 5 to 6. If somebody needs something sliced between 5 and 5:30, the cashier is going to be able to tell you, because she is not going to be restocking anymore during that time. She's going to be committed to staying in the store, bored or not bored. All right, so, and then finally at 6 o'clock when the store closes. Now I'm assuming, now sometimes it's very busy in the deli, okay? So, but I think in most average days, with that kind of focus, the slicer is going to be done cleaning up by 6 o'clock, okay? So the slicer is going to be free at 6 o'clock to do the things that are listed in green. Really, it doesn't matter who does them. I'm just assuming that it might be the slicer because they're done with they're likely done, if not done, very nearly done with what they're doing. They're going to close the salad bar and wash the utensils. That's when you can wipe down the front of the ice cream machine and wash the removable parts. You can mark down and move the deli items. So we don't want to do it earlier because then it confuses people. You can do your final wipe down of the bakery case. I was there not too long ago, and the bakery got wiped out and the stuff got taken out and the store wasn't closed, and we just caught somebody because there was going to be stuff that didn't sell because it wasn't put back in. I think that was on Saturday. You can turn the coffee maker to off. Jake prefers that. I don't know that it makes any difference, but we can make him happy that way. So at 6 p.m. then, this is the time when the cashier has things that she can't do. Just like the slicer from 5:30 to 6 has some definite things, the cashier at 6 o'clock has some definite things. So now slicer, you need to be very, very aware that you're not asking the cashier to do things for you because she has her own list of things to do. So lock the doors, check the window locks. Guys, learn which way those window locks look when they're closed and just glance through them. And check the doors. Lock the doors, check the doors. Okay? Because I hate to tell you, I hate to even enter it in anybody's mind, but let's just suffice it to say that Starla and Kathy at 4 a.m. are depending on the fact that you left everything locked up tight, including the windows. So you don't have to like try to open the windows. Just learn which way the lock goes when it's locked. And then just glance over those as you're locking everything up. Kind of just go around. I would lock everything up. I would go around. I would turn off all the cooler lights. For me, I would probably do that while I was locking. I would lock the doors. I would check all the doors, check all the lights, kind of go around the perimeter, turn off the lights, grab my list, go back and restock the drinks and chips. Okay, in the meantime, the slicer is probably hammering down on the salad bar. You're going to always make sure you check the restrooms. As scary as it would be for you to open the door and find somebody there, we don't even want to imagine. Just check it. Make sure nobody's in there. And then any suspended sales, you're going to collect money. You're going to close down the register. And then I put on there taking eggs. You probably would have taken in the eggs before you locked the door. That would be easier. We don't want to close any registers while the store is still open. We don't want to be getting money out. Now, occasionally I will get it out very discreetly myself. That's my prerogative. That's not your prerogative. You do not want to be held accountable for money being stolen out of your hand or anything like that. So we don't really want to be flashing money around while customers can be in there. So that's where that is. I believe there's a chance that, your final restocking of drinks and chips, if you've been stocking it all afternoon, it's not going to be more than a few things. If it takes you, if you're getting out of there at 6:05, you're not cleaning up well enough. When you come in at 10 o'clock, if you make a half an hour lunch break, then 6:30 is actually when an 8-hour shift would end. So I want you to probably adjust your expectations a little bit. There have been groups of people that couldn't get out till 7, or if we're training somebody new, sometimes it takes till 7. 7's probably too long. If you're there till 7, then either you had the busiest day ever, or you need to find ways to be more efficient. I think if you follow along with this, though, you're going to be pretty efficient. But if you're leaving at 6:05, 6:10, even 6:15, you might have to question whether or not you were doing things correctly. There are a lot of things that can be overlooked. Many of you do only closing or mostly closing and very little opening, and many of you do a lot of opening and very little closing. If you think that people don't notice when stuff is not done in the morning, then you're wrong. It is probably the number one point of frustration among employees that I've had in the 5 years we've had this business has not been anger, just frustration because things were quickly and hurriedly done by the closing crew, which we understand. Everybody wants to get out of there, but just know that there's that fine line between efficiency, which I do appreciate. You're being paid by the hour. I mean, I appreciate you not wasting time, but then that fine line between efficiency and thoroughness. And so just remember to always be thinking of the people ahead of you. Coming behind you the next day, basically, and what they're going to find and whether or not they're going to find things done in a way that they can start their day rather than having to backtrack. I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, no employees involved are still here, but almost every single Monday, a good number of pieces of the ice cream machine had to be rewashed. So you can imagine after doing that, 3 or 4 times would be enough. But what if you had done that 10, 15 times? You would begin to feel a little resentment, and you would say, oh my goodness, did these people, they just think I'm here to do, to clean this thing up on Monday. So we don't want to have that kind of culture. That is just among ourselves. That's just general being kind and respectful of each other. The altered schedule to keep the cashier in the store from 5 to 6, that is to make sure that our customers get good customer service. It's also to make sure you guys stay safe. I don't want anybody sneaking in and nobody knows. We don't want customers standing up there. And like I said, it does happen. I don't know that there's any one worse offender. I believe everyone has equally offended cashiers by going back to restock and just leaving customers standing there. I know you don't leave them standing there, but they were in the store or they walked in. Now, we all know that somebody wants a wrap, for instance. They walk back there, they can get their wrap, and they can be ready in the door and ready to check out in 30 seconds. So when you think, oh, I'm just going to run back to the back for 5 minutes and I'm going to restock, well, I mean, you could have missed 4 customers, and that has happened. And that's what we want to avoid. So during the day, it's not as hard. We don't run into this problem near as much because we're busier. It's predominantly in the evening when we're trying to clean up, and a lot of times people are trying to get somewhere. Sometimes I believe it's also possibly in the morning, but I think it's mostly in the evening. So there's that. So I do have a checklist for you, and I'm going to go over that after I stop this video and start one more, and we'll go over some things to check quickly before you leave to make sure that's done thoroughly.